Do you want to improve your presentation skills? Then you've come to the right place, because today we're going to study an important tool for speeches, lectures, and talks of any kinds, rhetorical questions. My name is Shai Lotan. I'm Associate Professor of International and Public Law at the University of Copenhagen Faculty of Law, and the purpose of this series of lectures is to help you improve your English. Why do we ask rhetorical questions? It could be just as a platform to the continuation of a sentence, just as I've used it at the beginning of this lecture and a few seconds ago. But it could also be to do something else, something that is unique to presentations before a live audience. And that is what Lillian Wilder, the expert on public speaking, calls getting a response. And we've seen in previous lectures how jokes can create a response, like laughter, how anecdotes can create a response from the audience. Rhetorical questions are very good at it because you're actually asking for some form of a response. The most important thing is that you need to decide in advance if a response that you're looking for is just some form of silent acknowledgement because it's just a rhetorical questions, or an answer. Are you actually asking the audience to answer something? This is something that is very, very important. And the main failure that I see with student presenters that present, for example, at my workshop, is they will do something in between. So we will ask a question, and then there'll be a pause, and then we will just continue without letting the audience give an answer, but the audience views this as a kind of failure because it's actually been a real question rather than a rhetorical question. So make the distinction very clear in your mind. Either you're asking a rhetorical question, in which case you're not expecting any response from the audience, you just want the audience to think about something, you can create a small pause, and then you continue the narrative. Or you can decide that you want a response from the audience, and you're asking a real question. It's not a rhetorical question, you're asking the audience. For example, you're asking the audience in a lecture about, in the course Legal English, if they speak Danish. It's a legitimate question. Everybody that speaks Danish can, for example, raise their hands, and then you get a picture of how many people in the classroom speak Danish. It's a simple question. It's not a rhetorical question. You want to keep those two questions distinct, those two types of questions distinct, rhetorical questions and real questions. Otherwise, there will be room for confusion among your audience. Okay, so you resolved that the question that you're asking is a real question. What are the tips that I can give you in order to do it properly? When you're making a real question, you have to make sure that the question is clear and that it has a clear answer. So everybody understands that the question is, do you speak Danish? And it has a real answer, which is, yes, I speak Danish, or no, I don't speak Danish. So that's very important. It's also important that you give enough time for the audience. Once you ask the questions, you give enough time for the audience to respond. And this may take time in the classroom, because even if people acknowledge and understand the question, they may be shy, they may decide that they don't want to participate, and until they actually feel enough of a pressure to participate, there need to be a silence that can take several seconds, and that's exactly what you need to provide for people to actually participate and answer your question. One of the most harmful things that people do when they ask questions of this kind is they ask a series of questions but don't have the same answer. So I'll give you a real example. One of my classes was a student who presented and asked, does everybody here speak Danish? Is everybody here Danish? Now, these are two questions that are different. I speak Danish because I studied it. I'm still not officially a Danish citizen. I'm an Israeli, I have a German citizenship. So do I say yes or do I say no? To the first question, I speak Danish, I have to say yes. To the second question, am I Danish? I have to say no. And that's something that is very confusing, and I see that it happens quite often. So ask a clear question with a clear answer, give plenty of time to answer it, and don't confuse by asking several questions that may look alike, but actually have different answers that are conflicting. Now, you have to decide as a teacher, what kind of a response do you want? So you can say response by a hand raise, show a show of hands, but show whether people say or not, or they actually answer your questions. And then if it's a complicated answer, be used to the fact that in a classroom there usually be very few people that are brave enough to do that. Usually what happens is that you're fortunate enough that there's one guy or girl that are regularly offering answers to these questions. They are brave enough to try. They get better at it. Encourage those people. show it to everybody that you really appreciate what they're doing, and you have to support this kind of behavior, because otherwise some of your questions will just be left unanswered. If you're asking a purely rhetorical question, just like I asked when I started this talk, do you want to improve your English? I'm not really interested to get comments. I want to improve my English, yes or not. I want to get a lot of comments and they deal with specific issues, but not with this very question. So when you're asking a rhetorical question, you have to make it clear that it is a rhetorical question by providing a quick answer or a quick continuation that will make the confusion between a real question and a rhetorical question impossible. So that's very important that you will do that. Don't try to leave too much time after a rhetorical question. Even if the audience will understand it's a rhetorical question, it will look like it is odd and it doesn't support the narrative. So the conclusion here is that it's possible to use rhetorical questions and real questions throughout your talk. If you're asking real questions, make sure that you can get an answer and use your experience to determine if it's actually something that is reasonable to expect. If you're asking a rhetorical question, make sure that it's clear that these are rhetorical questions and use them in order to support your narrative. Get some form of an acknowledgement from the crowd, because you could see them thinking, you're looking in their eyes, you see them thinking, and then quickly provide a continuation, but to continue the flow of a lecture uninterrupted.